Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Ladd, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 107. Today we have a fantastic guest with us who I will introduce you to in a minute, and we are starting the podcast with myself and Pete, who I will introduce you to in a minute, and hopefully Paul will be joining us part way through. But anyway, Pete, how are you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well yet again. Honestly, it's as well. 2 weeks ago, I was on holiday for 2 weeks and all that sort of stuff, and it's just like I don't know. Come back and I've started a couple of new things, so I've got like this new lease of life, right? Which is going to run. I mean, I say right until Christmas. That's the next holiday kind of time, isn't it? So I don't know. I'm quite excited about starting a lot of new stuff. Yeah, and I've been hitting a lot of PRs this week as well, so I'm quite happy with that in my program.
I've seen, and you've been doing lots.
Honestly, everything just kind of fallen into place, and I'm also excited about our guest as well, because we've had a little bit of a chat already, and it's stuff that this is coming at a really good time because it's stuff that I'm beginning to learn right now, and this is this thing I'm beginning to learn and everything, and also obviously he couldn't come on previously because he had COVID, and ironically he's sitting in front of a bookcase, which is what everyone did during COVID on the news, didn't they?
yeah. And,
how are you anyway, James?
Oh, I'm very good, thank you. Yeah. I've been working. I've actually been doing a bit of a course this week, as you know, in the mornings about podcasting and things like that.
Yes.
So I've been trying to get a bit more education on general stuff around podcasting and things. We've obviously been doing this for 2 years now, so that's a good way for me to increase my education. I've been doing some more work with Chet recently. Oh, Paul's here early. We've literally just started, so it looks like Paul's coming in. Mr. Paul.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, I'm kind of learning more. I'm reading more. I'm kind of, educating myself in different things and learning, and which I think is always good. And just he's actually in his gym. I can see we've not had Mr. Paul Bassett from his gym, and I think he's actually. You probably know this place, Paul Bedford. It's in Daley Thompson's gym in Putney. I don't know if you.
I know where it is.
Yeah. So Paul has got a studio within there. How are you doing? How are you doing, Paul?
Not bad. We're coming on the recording.
Yeah, that was literally seamless. I just introduced Pete. He asked me a question and then you popped up. So I'll come straight to you, which is, it would have been seamless if I hadn't told people you weren't here.
It would have been seamless if Paul said, "Are we recording?" If he hadn't have said that.
But you're good, Paul. Yeah, you've had a busy morning, I take it.
Oh yeah, I've been busy back to back, and I just didn't have time to get home. So I'm just kind of, I'll just observe for a few minutes and gather myself.
Okay. And our guest today is another Paul. It's Mr. Paul Bedford, who is now known. I don't know if he's probably not known by his friends and family as retention guru, but known more online and through speaking and work and professional circles as the retention guru. I'll tell you a little bit about Paul in a minute. But how are you doing, Paul? Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Simple.
just to explain to the listeners, we just Paul's just been out working in Europe. He's just been in Sweden and Finland, and he just flew back home this morning. So he's only been home for a few hours after being up very early and flying back home from Finland. So I've known Paul for about, I think it's probably around 10 years. It may be a bit longer, a bit shorter. I think we first got introduced by previous Health Oddity guest, Mr. Keith Smith, at some stage. And Paul's been in, he will tell us his story in a minute. Paul's been in the health and fitness industry, I think possibly, is it longer than Keith?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Since the genesis of the health and fitness industry in the UK. And I'll hand over in a minute and Paul can tell us the story. But Paul's been around the industry for years. years and decades, and now does something very interesting, which I think will be unlike anything that we've talked about on the podcast before, and I think has the potential to really help our listeners understand things. So without any further ado, if we can pass over to Paul. Paul, do you want to tell us a little bit about, yourself, your background? Because like I say, I probably don't fully know it, even though we've met a number of times and known each other. But yeah, welcome to the Health Oddity podcast. And
thank you very much.
And thank you for coming on. And yeah, just a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do now.
Okay, so came into the fitness industry 30 years ago. To give that a little bit of context, that was before treadmills.
Okay. Before electric treadmills, you still had the self-powered ones, yeah?
Well, I'm not even sure we had those. We had life cycles, and we had. It's probably about the same time as Life Fitness released what they called the Life Stride, which was a treadmill that was designed for walking on as opposed to running on. But so I've been around in the industry for, like as I said, 30 years. Started as a gym instructor on a voluntary basis at my local YMCA. Spent a couple of years working there, did some qualifications at the time that I don't know that most people would even be familiar with now. So I did the British Amateur Weightlifting Association qualifications. I did the National Amateur Bodybuilding Association qualifications, and a couple of others. And then went on to the YMCA at Tottenham Court Road and did their 2-week gym instructor course, or it was called a fitness instructor course then, because there wasn't any cardiovascular machines to teach. So it was circuit training, free weights and resistance machines. Did their course, continued working at the YMCAs, worked my way through to be the fitness manager, the general manager of the whole facility. And I've worked in both public and private sector businesses. Had a personal training business with about 30 trainers for a little while, but wasn't enjoying that. But I also was involved at the YMCAs in London as a trainer of trainers, educating people to be trainers. So the first time I ever met Keith Smith, who you mentioned in the introduction, he was a student of mine doing his fitness training course, and he did it the most difficult way you can do it, 1 night a week for 6 months. 3 hours at a time, every Tuesday night for 6 months. So you do one theory session on warm-up, and then you do the practical for that probably about 6 weeks later. So it was a really tough way of doing it, but he did it that way. And I taught a lot of those courses. And when I left there after about 10 years. They'd said I'd trained over 3,000 people to be fitness instructors or personal trainers. They announced that as part of my leaving. This is the legacy that Paul's been involved in. And while I was there, I was involved in lots of different types of training styles, helped co-wrote the indoor cycling program, the fitness assessment programs, used to teach nutrition, stress management, all the fitness things that used to go into the personal trainer courses when they took like 9 weeks to complete. But I just got to a point where I'd had enough. We were working almost 7 days a week. I did 1 year where I worked 42 weekends in a year, both Saturday and Sunday. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And the industry was changing a bit. Education was changing. And so I signed up and did a master's degree in exercise and health behaviour, which was in part of the psychology department at City University. And I was doing what was called a postgraduate diploma because I don't have a first degree. In fact, I don't have any other qualifications until I started doing them. I qualified as a teacher, but I don't have a first degree or any O levels or GCSEs or any of those sorts of things. Did my master's in exercise and health behaviour, looking at does motivation can you measure motivation when someone starts, and does that predict behaviour over time? Then I finished doing that and was sort of in the wilderness because I wanted to do more academic stuff, but couldn't find anything to do. And then I met a guy called Dr. Melvin Hilsden. We were both presenting at an event in America, and he's from the UK. And he said, look, if you want to do your PhD, you've done your master's. If you want to do your PhD, you could do it with me at London School of Hygiene, which is the School for Public Health in the UK. So I signed up, got accepted, and then went completely mad and did a second master's in social science research at the same time as I did a PhD, at the same time as I had a 2-year-old son and a full-time job. So full on learning.
You didn't go on to Grand Designs and try and build your own house at the same time, did you?
No. I love Grand Designs, but I actually said one time, if I ever win the lottery, I'll never have to go in B&Q again. that would be my dream. But both my second master's and my PhD focused on the application of behaviour change techniques in fitness environments, particularly during the onboarding phases. And I thought I was going to go off and be an academic. I thought after that PhD, I'm going to be an academic. I'm going to work in a university and do research. Only problem was back in 2006, none of the universities that I wrote to, and I wrote to 26 different universities around the world, were interested in studying fitness. They didn't mind doing exercise rehab. They didn't mind doing sports science and exercise and sports psychology, but they weren't actually interested in the behaviour of fitness. So I started my own business. At the time, it was called Re-Aim. I can't remember why it was called Re-Aim, and it didn't stay Re-Aim for very long. And then a friend of mine who speaks a lot in the industry, Pete Cohen, had launched a business called Weight Loss Guru. And I was laughing because I was thinking, if Pete's arrogant enough to call it Weight Loss Guru, I should call my business Retention Guru. So I did a little bit of background research and found out what actually guru meant, and it basically just means teacher. And retention.
I just, as a quick one, Paul, I've just realized we've never had Pete on, but we'll have to, because I did his Weight Loss Guru stuff. I've got it all somewhere here. And I've spent quite a lot of time with Pete over the years. So yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah.
So
it's funny because you might go into this as well, but guru is one of those words that's got a connotation to it now, hasn't it? And it just means teacher. It just means teacher, but it's been charged. It's one of those charged words, is it? That when you use it, people are like, "Oh my God, you're one of those," and it's like, that's just a teacher, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I joke about it, and I never refer to myself as the retention guru. I have a business called Retention Guru that I work with. And when people go, "Oh, you're the retention guru," I go, "That's right. I go around guruing." So I started that as I renamed and branded the business that because actually globally it translates to the same thing everywhere you go. So it pretty much describes what I do. And I started working with businesses, helping them keep their customers for longer, keep their members for longer. And that grew from being very small businesses, single sites and some personal training businesses. And now I work with some of the biggest health club chains in the world. So that's sort of my general story.
Yeah, and I think I know that you spend a lot of time out in sort of North America, don't you? And you say you were just working last few days in Sweden and Finland with a big chain. And did you do stuff out in Australia as well? Have you been out that far?
Yeah, interestingly, just before I came on, I'm just responding to an email from a company called Inspired Brands. Inspired Brands own Anytime Fitness franchise in Australia, and I've worked with them before in their 520 locations.
Yeah. So
I'll tell you what. During COVID, I had a joke during COVID about Anytime Fitness. Because it was basically that's the name of the minute. They're open 24 hours a day, but it was like I changed the logo from Anytime Fitness to Anytime Fitness, except during a global pandemic. You weren't allowed to go, were you?
So we do a lot of research work as well as consultancy and training, and we're up to, with the clients we've got, we're currently looking at 5.5 million members in 4,500 clubs in 31 different countries.
Wow.
So we're tracking behavior and looking at behavior, and we've looked at 71 different items that may or may not impact retention. So and we're constantly looking for new things to study and test, as well as we often redo research we've done a few years ago just to see if it still holds up.
Yeah. So that's what I was kind of. Oh, sorry, Pete. So that's what I was thinking when obviously to asking you to come on here, because we have obviously had episodes where we talk more about if you like, the nuts and bolts of fitness and training and the minutiae of it and the sets and the reps and the exercises and that sort of thing. But obviously, as we all know, you can have the best exercise program in the world in the best equipped gym in the world. But if you don't go in there and do it 3 times a week or whatever, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's why I really wanted to speak to you today, because you are the kind of the expert on behavior and what helps people, or maybe not help, gives people the best opportunity or the most likelihood to stick at exercise. And from an end user point of view, we do obviously have gym owners who listen and personal trainers who listen, but the majority of people who listen to this podcast are the end users. So it'd be really interesting if you could kind of talk to us about, in all your, like you say, 31 countries, millions of users, what are the main predictors of sticking at exercise, and how can we maybe hack those, if you like, and use them ourselves?
I think that, and it sort of it crosses over both ways in terms of operators as well as participants and members. But the first thing you have to think about is visit frequency. You have to create a visit frequency that's sustainable, and that's one of the things that people don't usually start with. They let me step back a second. I work from this perspective. If you don't get their head, you don't get their body. On any given day, it's the head that decides whether the body's going to the gym or working out. Until you get to a level where that becomes an automatic behavior. You don't think about going, you just go. Now, some people refer that to as a habit. As someone who studied psychology, it's probably not a habit, because it's not something that's traditionally addictive and you need more and more of it to satiate you and things like that. But I understand when people call it an exercise habit.
What would you call it, just out of interest?
Routine.
Okay.
But routines build habits. So if you want to build a habit, you need to start with a routine. If you want to build a habit or a routine, it has to occur at least once per week. If the frequency of the behavior is less than once per week, it's not probably something you're going to sustain, and it's more of a random act rather than a regular act. And what you're looking for is this sustained regular act. So I think the first thing that new exercisers need to consider is actually, how often can I come, not how often do I want to go. Because we all want to go more, and in behavioral economics they call it intention bias. We all think we're going to do more than we actually do. We all plan to do more than we actually do, and then things go astray. So I know, you go to the cinema quite regularly. I thought at the beginning of this year, I'm going to go to the cinema more. That's my intention bias. I didn't go at all last year, so I only need to go once this year to do more than last year. I still haven't been, and we're in September.
There's an interesting thing. The way I think of that is like, because if you're going to be able to go once a week, that's great. If you say you want to go 3 times a week, the intention bias, but you're not going to be able to, you're going to be you're like, in your head, you'll be failing every week. Is that right?
That's exactly.
So at least if you say I'm going to go once and you end up going twice, you're winning. You're already onto a winner, even just by going twice.
Most definitely. So also, I would encourage people to consider how many sessions they're going to do per month and band it. So 4 to 8 sessions per month, because there are some weeks when it's very difficult to get in, life, work, everything else, and other weeks where it's a little bit more straightforward. So if I said to someone, and I was training a new client, I go, you need to be looking to train 4 to 8 times per month. I give them an upper and lower range to work within. Now, if they go over 8, I don't really care, but they can usually get 4 sessions in. My next set of questions are, which days, what time? So I want to get really, really specific. So rather than, and I hear it when I watch consultations, instructors saying to their clients, how often were you thinking of training? 3 times a week. It's like a quiz. How many times are you thinking of training? 3 times a week. Is that the right answer? And how long were you thinking of training for? About an hour. It's a quiz, because they think those are the right answers. Whereas if you don't ask that and you go, okay, open your diary, show me which days you're coming in and at what times, that's much more specific. Once you've done that, diarise it. Put it in the diary, put it in your schedule. To start with, there'll be some flexibility to that. But over time, if you keep going on the same day and the same time, the people around you begin to recognize that's the time you do such and such. Therefore, I'm not going to ask James, and I'm going to make a guess at this. I'm not going to ask James if he's available on a Wednesday afternoon, because he goes to the cinema on Wednesday afternoons to watch his Marvel films. So there's no point.
Have you been spying on me, Paul?
I just follow what you do, mate. But it's you, when you pick up on someone's behaviour like that, or someone goes, well, I can't do this on this day because, you go, okay, fine. When can you? And you can get a much more realistic exercise schedule into someone's diary to do that. And I think also, if you're newer to exercise, or exercise is something you do because you either feel you need to do it, you know, you want to do it, but you're not part of that lifestyle that exercise is everything to you. Sometimes comparing yourself to people who live the lifestyle of exercise, where that comes before everything, and they're training, you know, here's the training session I did today. This is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm doing tomorrow. It's like, wow, I feel in like as a bit of a fraud if I'm only going once or twice a week. But you're going once or twice a week, you're talking about 52 to 104 training sessions a year, if you're consistent. So I would start people with, let's get a realistic amount of time or days that you can train, and then a realistic amount of time when that fits within your diary.
Because everybody, like you say, they think there's that right answer when you speak to them, and it's like 3 to 4 times a week, you know, and they're going to go from nothing to suddenly this, you know, and like you say, it's almost people say what they think they want you to hear, don't they?
Well, I think you need to get micro commitments, don't you? You need to get people to buy in on things. You know, when I'm talking to someone, I'm like, I think you commit to 2 times a week, and they say yes or no. You know, are you prepared to follow a nutrition plan that's going to help you achieve your goals? And they say yes or no. You know, so they start thinking in terms of what they're committing to, and that they start making these psychological adjustments so that they understand that they're now being taken on a coaching process, and that they have something to bring to the table. Because it's quite easy for people to purchase themselves a result without having any buy-in. And I think, you know, I mean, we talked about Peter. We talked about my scale of 1 to 10. Sometimes that works really well, where I'm trying to get people to place themselves on a scale, because I want to kind of see their ability to take action. And I think if I'm going to write a book, it's going to be The Key to Success Diary Management. Is probably going to be it, because it's never about the diet. It's never about the training. You know, as long as they show up in the door, then I know I'm going to get them a result. But if I can't get them in the door because they haven't sorted out their diary, I'm not going to be able to do anything, you know?
Well, we've got research on personal training that shows people who have personal training on a set day and set time of a week, every week, stay longer than general gym users. But people who have personal training on an ad hoc basis don't stay as long as regular gym users.
Yeah.
Because
I've written something down here about my guys, because a lot of them are, you know, like they've got jobs and have meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I might get something in the morning for somebody coming to a 9:30 session. I can't come to the 9:30 session now because someone slotted a meeting in my diary. And I'm like, somebody else has got control of your diary. How does that work? And number two, what would happen if you had another meeting at 9:30? That was already in your diary. It's like, well, they wouldn't be able to slot it in. It's like, right, so they've just slotted it in there because it suits them, but not you. You've had to push this aside because it wasn't in. It's like, put it in your diary, block that time out, and then nobody can take it away. It's managed.
When I used to train clients, a lot of my clients were accountants, because I found that they were really good payers. And they had the money.
Yeah, but they also fight you on the costs.
Oh, well, mine didn't, because I was stupidly too cheap. But one of the things we used to do is we would get the diary out at the beginning of the month, and we'd schedule in their sessions. But the last week of the month, I'd say don't put anything in, because they're tying, because of the nature of their work. The last week of the month, when they're trying to tie up all the books, that's when they're most stressed. And I say to them, let's not put a session in, but if you can find some time to do a session on your own, get on with it. But we'd also change the amount of time they train for. So earlier in the month, they were doing 3 times a week for about an hour. But later in the month, they were doing 2 times a week for 45 minutes. So we didn't fix the amount of time or the number of sessions per week. We just looked at their diary first and said, where can we fit these in?
That's brilliant, because that's another thing I thought I had when Paul was talking as well, was in the consultation, instead of like one of the first questions being, right, so what result do you want and how many times a week do you want to work towards it? It's, what does your lifestyle look like? What do you do? What is, what do you do for a living? How many kids you got?
Yeah.
What do you do at weekends? Can you, because people will go, I've got all this time at the weekends, well, they haven't, because they're ferrying kids all over. Their kids are quite young at the minute, but in 6 months' time, they're going to be joining clubs and all of this sort of stuff. So that immediately tells you as the trainer as well, like, right, you're saying you can commit to this.
Yeah.
I already know you're probably not going to be able to, so I'm going to give you a win out of this and say, let's do 2 sessions or whatever. Yeah. Whatever you think.
So you can frame their expectation about what success is around their actual lifestyle. Now, what I often found was over time, like you were describing about not letting people put things in other people's diaries, they started to elbow things out the way to go, no, I want to carry on doing that. But if I'd forced them to do it at the beginning, it's too much friction for them mentally to deal with.
Yeah. So the big kind of category or subject here, then we call it kind of scheduling or realistic diary management, time management, and kind of letting the client or the person themselves, they need to actually look at that and kind of diarize and start putting some stuff in. What would be the next kind of big rock, if you like, that you look at in terms of so the first thing I spoke was visiting, it was training frequency, wasn't it?
The next one I would do is pick one thing. So often what happens is, in my experience, is like, I want to lose weight, tone up, get fit. I want to change my diet. I'm going to give up smoking. I want to manage my stress. I want to sleep better. There's all of these things. Now, if you look at the research around behavior change, around all sorts of different things, when you have multiple behaviors you're trying to change at the same time, you're more likely to fail than if you just choose one thing. So choosing one thing allows you to sort of elbow out the way everything else and go, right, I'm just going to start exercising. I think John Berardi and his work stuff that he does is like, first thing, smaller plates. Once you've managed smaller plates, we'll move on to the next thing. But we're not going to try and change lots of things. Let's get one behavior established, build on that behavior, and then we can alter other behaviors. Because then you're setting someone up to be successful. You'll achieve what's called an improvement in self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to be successful. But for self-efficacy to work, you have to believe in you have to believe in the process, but you have to value the outcome as well. So you have to believe it's possible
for you as well. You have to. The main thing is you have to believe it's possible for you. You know, you believe in the process, you believe in it, or you believe it can work, but you actually believe,
can do it as well.
I can do it.
It's the trilogy.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
This is one of the things I always find is really difficult, especially as a coach.
Yeah.
Because you know this, and you know how hard for me and Paul, our stories are we worked in like corporate world and then we became trainers. James is different; he's been in it his whole life, sort of thing. But we had to do all of this. We've done all of this, but we know it takes like 10 years to do the habit and get to start this training properly, to get your sleep right, to get your food right, and all of that sort of stuff. And it doesn't take 10 years, but it takes a long time. But obviously, if you try and explain that to someone in the very beginning, Ainsley said this, the guy who reversed his type 2 diabetes, who we've had on the show, friend of the show. And he said he ended up like doing loads of stuff over a year. But he said if you'd have told him what he would have been doing in the beginning, he wouldn't have even started.
Yeah. Because for him, wasn't it, Pete? For him,
it's where is the best place to begin, I suppose. But then it's individual, isn't it?
Well, look, lots of people, if you think of it like this way round, if they've pitched up to a gym, they're interested in exercise.
Yes.
And really that, because at home, they might have already changed their diet or be thinking of changing their diet. But I think if they've walked into a facility, the thing that our primary activity is being more physically active and exercise. Whether we have additional knowledge around nutrition and stress management and things, I'd hold those for later. I wouldn't put, if you want to do rapid results, you could do all of them. But if you look at body transformation programs, they get rapid results, but often the customer doesn't hold on to those results. So you can do the before and after, but they don't. If you follow the after up 6 months after that, they're back to where they were. Because it's the same as doing a diet for 12 weeks and then going back to your normal eating habits. So behavior change is not easy. It just isn't easy. Getting people to understand that trying to do lots of things at the same time, while they may be encouraged to do that, is going to be a challenge. I set it up and say to people, think of it as plate spinning. If you're not any good, if you're a master of plate spinning, putting plates on a post and spinning them, that takes ages to learn. But each one of those plates is a different behavior. And you've got to keep an eye on everything. To start with, you want one plate, one stick, get really good at that. Once you've mastered that, move on to a second one. But get successful in one first. Because otherwise you'll be failing in different areas. You might be successful in one, but you'll fail in another area. And then you'll be focusing on the failures that you've had, even though in one area you're being really successful.
So in terms of,
I've been doing a thing recently, for the month of August. I've got a bunch of people in a group just writing down 5 wins a day.
Yeah,
which seemed really, and I thought this was really interesting, because when people write down wins, they might only find 2 in a day out of 5. Because they're looking for massive wins. They're looking for like huge wins every day.
Yeah.
However, if you're having a rubbish day and I get you, or you get whoever gets you to write down at the end of the day what's happened, you write down what's happened.
Yeah.
And then they go, that's why you're having a rubbish day. Look how small that is.
Yeah.
Look how small that thing is that's ruined your day. The same goes the other way around for wins. They don't have to be big. They just have to be wins. And what you just said there is great. So you failed at one, you might have failed at the exercise, but you got the eating right, or the vice versa, or whatever. But then everything comes tumbling down, like with the plates, because you're like, oh no, it's all gone. But it's like, no, that's a win.
You might trip from nutrition to exercise with what's called the abstinence violation effect. I didn't do as many sessions as I'd planned to do. Abstinence violation effect kicks in, which basically, I won't swear, but it begins with F, ends with K. It.
Yeah.
I've messed up my exercise. I might as well eat all those pizzas in the freezer. So now you've messed up your nutrition as well. It's like, oh, I've done that on a Thursday. There's no point in starting again this week. I'll wait till Monday. Well, if I've got till Monday before I start, I might as well make a thing of it this weekend.
Yeah. That's my dad. You've just described exactly how my dad used to be for 20 years.
But it comes at that process, that analysis comes from alcohol addiction. Abstinence violation effect. I've not drunk, I've been dry, I've been nothing. Oh, I'll just have one. Oh, I've had one. I might as well finish the bottle. I'm off. I might as well carry on drinking into oblivion. But
I think George Best said that, didn't he? George Best said that. He said it's like, he had a year off alcohol, So on the anniversary of it, he was like, brilliant. So he went out and got pissed
Yeah.
to celebrate. And then he was all back on it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder why they don't make smaller wine bottles. I mean, I know you get the teeny ones.
Yeah.
But they're always either teeny or massive.
Yeah.
And so, you know, how many people kind of like, because it's cork or whatever, they just, once it's open, it's open.
Yeah.
You know?
Once you've popped, you can't stop.
That's why I buy small beer cans, you know, like the 330 mils. So if I buy like one of the bigger ones, you just drink the bigger one, wouldn't you? So it's just.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I did a thing the other day where you've mentioned the word friction already in this podcast. And I did a thing the other day for our members where I talked about trying to reduce the friction on the things, on the behaviors and the things you want to do more of, and increase the friction on the behaviors you want to do less of. So make it more difficult. Yeah. And Paul just mentioned beers. I spoke about having my beers in a fridge in the shed. So if I wanted a beer, it was a bit of an inconvenience. I had to unlock the back door, get the key to the shed, walk out. I had to really want a beer to get a beer. It wasn't just reach over and get it. So
now James has to go and rebuild his shed because he smashed it
down. I'm sitting in the shed
trying to get a beer.
Well, no, I nearly had a beer fridge put in here, but then I decided against it. So yeah, this kind of friction. I think a lot of what you're talking about can draw on that as well, can't it? And can be linked to that, you know.
Yeah. So you have to think about, because I think exercise is a planned behavior. It never happens just by chance. You have to think, you know, for the vast majority of it, I've got to go somewhere. In order to go somewhere, I've got to travel. I've got to make time to travel. I've got to make sure I've got the right attire to work out in. You have to set up. It's called habit stacking, where you set up individual things that one triggers the next, triggers the next, triggers the next. You know, and probably the most commonly talked about one is making sure your workout kit is either in your bag or in your car, ready to go as soon as you're ready to go and work out, rather than as soon as you've got to look around and try and piece some things together, it's like, this is taking me longer than I thought. I haven't really got time now. Session's gone. You know, so planning behaviors and trigger behaviors. And there's a thing in cognitive behavioral therapy called hot cognitions. What are the thoughts that trigger the behaviors? Now, a lot of people think motivation drives behavior. What I found in my master's was behavior drives motivation. The example I always use is, and it's not a gym one, I'm never motivated to clean the bathroom. There's no, I'm not thinking, oh, great, this Saturday morning I get to clean the bathroom. I'm like, ugh. But as soon as I start cleaning the bathroom, I'm motivated to finish. And if I do the behavior frequently enough, it actually changes my belief system. So one of the things we can do to help people, or what people can do to help change their belief system, is do the thing that they want to do regularly enough that it creates an identity that becomes a lasting identity. So they might have the identity, I am an exerciser, I'm a fitness person, even if I didn't go to the gym this week. That doesn't stop me from being, because then the barrier, because as soon as I start thinking, that's not me, well, if that's not me, why would I go? So we have to build people's identity up and get them to recognize the behaviors they've done. Now, one of the ways that, when I was training clients and benchmarking things, at one point I was really, really into fitness testing. Then I realized that was all about me, just because I was curious and I wanted to show the skills I had. And then I started with clients going, let's do your first workout and record what you do in your first workout. I'd then train them for 10 to 12 weeks. And at the end of 12 weeks, I'd make them redo their week 1 workout without telling them that was their week 1 workout. And while they were doing it, they were going, why are we lifting this? Why am I doing that? Why is it? They go, this is where you were 12 weeks ago. Because you don't notice the change. You know that you're stronger. You know that you're fitter. Your physique might have changed a bit. But the direct comparison between this is the workout you could manage day 1, now look how that feels. It gives someone a complete, direct comparison. And then I'd move them on again and just keep tracking back either to the very first workout or to the last benchmark workout. And I think that's where people, because fitness takes a long time or a reasonable time to be accomplished, we don't notice the gains, we don't notice the changes. We can see them written down, but they don't actually feel any different. When it's heavy, whether it's 10 kilos or 100 kilos. But when you actually have to lay underneath it and go, 10 kilos, this is what you did in your first session. And they're like, I was doing this. And you go, yeah, and you were struggling.
I find that really helpful. And I train groups as well. So when I've got someone new, after say 2 or 3 sessions, and they're finding something already slightly easier than they did at the beginning because of technique or whatever, and then I'll get one of the guys who I'm training who's been there for like 3 years and say, well, you started with one of these, didn't you? And he's over there swinging like a 40 kilo bell or something like that, and they're on a 16.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you started out with one of them, didn't you? He's like, yeah, my back used to get a bit sore doing it, so we did this mobility and that and blah, blah. And then you can actually, if you can use examples as well, I always find that brilliant, because that person there looks exactly like this person here. Yeah. They don't look like a ripped, an Instagram model, put it that way. They don't look like that.
We actually,
look like,
sorry, mate. One of the marketing approaches we used one time when I was working in a club was we had before and after shots, and they were the same picture. And so you'd look at it and you go before and like, and you're looking at, it's almost like that find the 5 things that are different type picture. It's like, and underneath we go lowered blood pressure, came off such and such medication. So there were all the health benefits, not the physique benefits. And people were like, mate, they looked at it and they went, oh my God. You know, it was like, it was so different because, and the person we used was definitely not a fitness person. But they just listed all the things that they could do that they hadn't been able to do beforehand, yet their physique hadn't changed.
Where do you think about, because there's a phrase at the moment that gets used a lot, and there's a lot of talk around sort of discipline's more important than motivation, you know, and this kind of, and I suppose it's like, it kind of ties in with this behavior drives motivation, but where does discipline come from?
I think that comes from fitness people, and I'm gonna, this might, I don't care, making it sound derogatory to people who can't do what they do. You don't have the discipline. Actually, all you need is the routine.
Everyone's got discipline though, haven't they? Because if let's say you're obese and out of shape, you've had the discipline to get into that state. If you're really good at your job, but you're out of shape, it's where you put your focus, isn't it? It's where you put your focus. It's as simple as that.
But discipline implies that it's hard. There's a connotation in the word discipline. You've got to be disciplined. Well, actually, I've just got to turn up, which could be routine. It could be commitment. And who are they? You know, and I think it comes from a group that are already in the fitness lifestyle. You know, I had a really eye-opening experience during the first lockdown. I have a group of friends that I go out with 4 times a year, once a quarter, and they've been friends for 30, 40 years. None of them are in the fitness industry. A few of them have gym memberships. We're sitting on a Zoom call because we couldn't go out to dinner. Not one of them, including the gym goers, cared at all that gyms were shut. They were like, as long as we get our wine orders and our food delivery comes in, we're happy to sit at home and walk the dog. And I was like, whoa, because everybody I'm around all the time were going up the walls that they couldn't lift heavy enough, put it that way. And I was like, there are a large proportion of people that are, you know, they go to the gym, but if the gym shuts, like, oh, the gym's shut today. They don't have that commitment that a small proportion of the fitness minded or the fitness community have. They're not as worried about it.
I suppose they haven't reached that stage of change where it's their identity. So there. So I suppose I know that kind of, discipline thing, it's on t-shirts and on memes and stuff, but
Yeah.
from your background as a behavioral PhD and that sort of thing, even if it's just a case of doing your 4 to 8 sessions a week from doing nothing, that does require maybe
I'm just looking it up. I'm just looking discipline up online here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because whether it's, if you look at the pure sense of the word or whatever, and we take away from the, you're not disciplined enough and like a drill sergeant type thing. Because obviously I loved what you said about, motivation doesn't drive behavior drives motivation. And I can 100% see that, because I'm sure everyone who's listening has been in the kind of the situation before where they've gone to the gym, they really don't want to be there, and they do the first 10-15 minutes, and then they're kind of in the session and they're going and they're kind of motivated to finish it, and they feel great afterwards. So but actually there has to be some degree of discipline or compulsion or driver of the behavior to actually get you to do it. So I just wondered if it's not motivation.
See, for me, discipline means that you're not prepared to break with the routine that you're designed. Now, if you've said you're going to come 5 days a week, then to have the discipline, you'd have discipline to maintain that and all the exercise you said you were going to do and everything else you were going to do. I don't think the vast majority, well, the data we've got on the 5.5 million shows that only 1% of members in clubs visit more than 3 times per week. More than 3 times a week. About 10% are coming 3 times a week. It's usually about 60 to 70% are only coming 3 times a month. So, when I'm working, it's like, I want a bigger commitment than that. I want 4 to 8, maybe 12 times a month.
Well, it's not motivation people need, it's momentum, isn't it? And momentum comes through action. And then the key is to create action, which is behavior. And behavior, what is it? The Chuck Close quote, everyone wants inspiration. The rest of us just show up and get to work. Inspiration is for amateurs. You've got to create routine. Routine creates momentum. Momentum creates lifestyle. Lifestyle is self-perpetuating.
But I think that we have to think that for the vast majority of people, the lifestyle they want isn't the lifestyle of the 5% or the few percent at the very top that live fitness forever. They want fitness in there. They have a lifestyle already. They just want more fitness in it. They don't necessarily want the fitness lifestyle.
And they probably want like the minimum effective dose, don't they? They want their lifestyle that they've got. But they maybe want some changes to happen. And if they can get that through 3 30-minute sessions a week.
But this is why we do an exchange of value, because what they want is that they don't know. What they know is that they have a need for something, and then they're looking for someone who speaks the language of action. And so our job is to create a path and a journey that creates clarity where there isn't any at the moment. It's like, so when I build a house, I say, if you want to build a house or have a conversion or something, say, I want a better living space. I want to be able to play with the kids, and we want the kitchen to be a bit bigger, and I want to have, I want to have friends over where we can socialize, and I want to be able to have an outside garden room, and I don't want to have it better economic, what do you call, like heating economics and stuff like that. I don't know what that is. You stick a bit of, stuff in the roof and do this, that, and the other. I don't know. I'm not a builder. That's it. I'm not a builder. I was just saying, I know what it looks like when I'm in there. You tell me what language we need to be talking in order to make that happen. And essentially that's what I'm doing, is I'm saying, okay, I kind of get this feeling. I get an understanding where you want to be. Okay. So this is something that's going to package that in something really simple, so you don't get overwhelmed in every other aspect of your life. If in 6 weeks you tell me you can do more, great, then we're on the right path. And then in a way, I don't want them thinking too much with their head. I want their heart there, because if their heart is in the right place, like I had someone this morning signed up for the A12. Sometimes it's the Amazing 12, my 12-week program. It's like, sometimes I'm sitting, I had a guy in yesterday for the same program, and this lady in today. She she was just bought in on what she could potentially see in her life. And then it was just me articulating that path to her, because she was trying to talk it through with me, but she didn't see through the fog because things weren't working. Whereas the guy, I sat down with him and he's very perfunctory. He's just like, I know I need to do something. I think I need to do this, that. And he didn't have his heart wasn't in there. He just knew he had an intellectual hole. And I don't know what will slot into that intellectual hole, but if I can grasp someone's desire and something like that, and I can speak their language a little bit and make it easy, then I think you've got someone. And then you've got to keep that conversation going, because it's easy to get disheartened as well, isn't it?
And I think there's a lot of people, the example I use is, I drive a car, but I don't want to be a mechanic. I just want my car to work.
Exactly.
And so I don't need mechanic. If the mechanic says to me, this is what's wrong with your car, I'm like, I have to take them at their word, because I'm not prepared to invest all the time to actually understand what he's talking about. And I think there's an awful lot of people, you see that in Group X. People turn up for Group X. They go, what do you want me to do? I don't want to think about it. I'm not prepared to invest in learning why we're doing this. Don't care. Put me through something.
Well, that's it. I mean, what's the first question you guys all get? So you send out an email, or you respond out to your network of people you have, and you say, your title of the email is coaching. I'm looking for 6 to 10 people who are willing to be coached, etc., and lose 6 to 10 pounds in 4 weeks. So what's the emails you get back? How much does it cost?
Yeah.
Because that's the only question people know what to ask.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like me going to a mechanic. If we use that mechanic example, say, there's something wrong with my car. How much does it cost? And I'm like, I don't know. You've got to bring it in. I've got to look at the car. I've got to understand how much mileage it is, what kind of model. Is it the clutch? I don't know what it is, And so I can't tell you what the price is until I understand where you want to be, or what's the issue with the car.
Paul, do you find, just from your experience, from because obviously you've been in the industry for 30 years, how long have you been consulting with clubs and operators and things?
Since 2004.
Okay, so 18 years doing that. So,
and I was doing personal training with behavioural coaching built in before that.
So I was just going to ask, because I think it's almost like, I suppose, losing weight is the easy part. It's keeping it off that people struggle with, isn't it? Generally. And I presume going into a gym and joining a gym, paying your money and signing the contract or whatever is the easy part, isn't it? It's actually then, I suppose it's from a user point of view, it's actually using and going and actually getting value out of it. And from an operator's point of view, it's making sure that person stays for as long as possible. And the only reason they'll stay for as long as possible is if they're enjoying the experience, they're getting results, they're feeling valued, it's the experience stuff, I suppose.
The thing that keeps them is, do they think they're getting value from their behavior? So they don't even have to get results, which might sound really bizarre, but you only have to look at, walk into a traditional gym or many gyms and see people who train all the time and their bodies haven't changed at all, but they carry on training, but they see there's some other value that they get from exercise. And I think one of the challenges we have is, you mentioned, the easy bit is coming in. The first session is very daunting. There's lots of anxiety and anxiety management that we have to consider. Sometimes we overload them with information, so there's a cognitive load that they can't cope with. And then, not within PT, but within traditional gyms, we then just say to them, right, get on with it yourself. Now, if you strip it back and say, look, the first thing I want you to get good at is turning up. We'll give you some exercises to do, learn those exercises, and treat the first 6 weeks as your base level, your foundation, your education of how to do the exercises. Worry less about the outcome, the physical change, and worry about actually achieving the, I've turned up and I've gone through the program, because you're trying to learn that. So it's trying to sort of, it's, we almost set people up to, I feel, fail as an industry. It's like giving them a driving lesson that contains all the different maneuvers you need to know. and then say, there's your car keys, go away and practice on your own. I'll see you in 12 weeks. And I think where personal training supports people is you can build up those skills at a rate that the person can accommodate. But you have to be really mindful of the skills, the things you're asking them to do. You want to give them things they can be successful at. And I'd really, you know, just sort of raise an eyebrow when people go, well, I never teach cardiovascular machines. I never teach resistance machines. I'm going, so you don't give people an opportunity to be successful, you know, on their own. If they were training on their own, I'd always start them on things they could be successful at, rather than saying, I think the first exercise we need to teach you, because it's a foundation exercise, is a Turkish get-up. It's like, damn, there's loads of instructors can't do Turkish get-up well, including me, you know, but it's like where we think they're at and where they're at is so different, both physically and psychologically.
And I think it comes back to that. You talked about it, that the biggest thing is that self-efficacy, isn't it? And confidence in self. And
yeah,
I think it was Keith, and you probably taught this to Keith, but I think Keith said something like, you know, if you make people feel, you know, fat, stupid, self-conscious, that
so
they look
it's
silly, you know.
So it's this, James. What you want to do is you want to build confidence, competence, and look good. Confidence in the ability to use the facility, competence in the ability to do the exercises. Look good isn't aesthetic. Look good is I look like I know what I'm doing. Because the opposite to that is incompetent, unconfident, and ugly. And who's going to show up anywhere where they feel incompetent, unconfident, and ugly?
Yeah.
Something I do when I've taught someone, especially like not necessarily beginners to exercise, but beginners to me, as in when they show up, I've not met before and all that. The next session, whatever I've shown them in the first session, without even just a technique or something like that, the next session I'll go, show me what you remember of what we did. And you'll usually see them go, oh dear, okay, I'll have a go. And then they've either, it's either not ingrained, but it's somewhere in the that either like the central nervous system remembers, or it depends on how they think through it and go, right, you said this, this, and this. And inevitably, they do way better than they did if you just show them something and go do that. Yeah. So I always find that surprises them after session 1 into session 2, and they go, "Oh, blimey, yeah, I didn't know I'd pick that up." And then it's like, right, okay, so imagine that's going to happen every single session. Where are we going to be in 6 weeks or whatever? Yeah. I just like, is that a good thing to do or not? Because I'm starting to. Whenever I have these conversations, I start questions like, "Hang on, this is how I do stuff. Am I doing it right? Not right or wrong, but am I making someone feel comfortable or not? You know."
If you think about it, anything we try and learn requires repetition.
Yes.
You know, we even take our books and we read them, and then we get to the end of it and we go, I need to go back and reread that bit. But it takes repetition. And I think sometimes we move people on too quickly with new exercises because we've done them so frequently for so long. We move them on before they're ready to move on. But you've still got, again, you go back to it. There's lots of people who do the same workout every time they go in, and they're happy to do a work. It's bizarre because they're happy to do the same workout week in, week out that isn't giving them the results that they want, but they're happy to repeat it because at some level they're doing something. And I can't remember what the term is, but there's two sides to this. But there's the way I think of it is like, why do we see most people exercising on a Monday? Because they're paying back the psychological debt of what they did over the weekend. And at least on a Monday, they can come in and go, yeah, I did a workout. That starts to balance out what I did Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Or if you're young, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then towards the end of the week, they seem less motivated to do it because actually what's more motivating is the weekend and the social aspects of being with friends. And I joked yesterday to the group in Helsinki, I said, who's in your gym on a Friday night? I said, there are 3 types of people. I said, there's the fitness, the hardcore fitness person who's going to train Friday. If you want to go out for a drink with them, then they'll come out after they've trained. there's the person who's got no friends, and there's the person who's going to pump up to look good before they go out. I said, but usually on a Friday night, our clubs are dead because the where do I spend my time on this day is like, do I want to be here or do I want to be here? And the pull of the other thing is much greater than the pull of the gym.
Well, that's like why in summer everyone disappears to beer gardens, don't they?
Yeah.
You're like, where is everyone? It's like, oh, it's sunny outside. Everyone's gone to the beer garden.
Yeah.
What?
That's absolutely brilliant, Paul. I mean, we've had you on for an hour, so I think I know you're up since 4 a.m. coming back from Helsinki. So no, I think that so just to kind of summarize the points that I got there from you. The first thing to focus on is vision, and this is for the end user or for the personal trainer or for the gym owner, is visit frequency and the fact that routines build habits. Yeah. And I love the scaling the sessions out to months. So 4 to 8 per month or 4 to 12 in a month rather than weekly, diarising the days and the times, focus on one thing at a time and building the self-efficacy around that. And I love the spinning the plates analogy. And then the fact that behavior drives motivation. And I think everyone can relate to that. And I think it's the first time we've discussed cleaning a bathroom on the podcast, but I think everyone can recognize that you start a job like mowing the lawn or whatever, you start it and then you want to finish it and you have a bit of pride in it by the time you finish it. So it's it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Brilliant. If people want to, Paul, I know you're not massively all over social media all the time, and you obviously work with the people you work with and the big brands and things. But if people wanted to maybe follow you to find out a bit more, like I think I might have said before we came on the recording that I did your online retention convention last year. I'd imagine you'll be back to doing live things more.
Yeah, we're not going to do. That was the 7th one. We've done, and we've done last 2 online. The next one, we're not doing one this year just because we're so busy, but we're at PerformX. We're collaborating with them to be at PerformX to do the next retention convention. But I'm fairly easy to track down as retentionguru.com. So there's a website and there's videos and blog posts and stuff. But also on YouTube, we've got a YouTube channel as Retention Guru where we post every Tuesday something of a video of about 5 to 10 minutes maximum about different things. And sometimes I talk about more commercially operated businesses and what they can be doing. And sometimes I talk about behavior change techniques, which I'm going to do more of because I've just been logging. There are 91 behavior change techniques you could apply in the fitness industry in 16 different categories. So I thought each one of them would make quite a nice post for a while. So I'll be sharing those again, but they'll be in the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Really, really interesting to hear from your perspective and the work that you do, how it affects, the whole behavior change thing. Because that is essentially, like you said, if you've not got it right in the head, your body won't, your head controls the body. So that was fantastic. Pete, have you got anything you'd like to say as we kind of start to wrap up?
Yeah, just similar to what you said about the habits come from routine and stuff. Does motivation, where does that come from? And then you said you start the thing and then you motivate to finish and all that. I love that. And something just popped into my head. Actually, what I do with my guys is they've got a link to the calendar of the sessions, and every Sunday I get them to book in what they're going to do that week. Yeah. So they declare it on a Sunday, and they're like, right, this is what I'm doing this week, and it's like, right, there's your intention. And also we mentioned B&Q, and I've got a B&Q joke from Viz. Right, it's like I wandered into B&Q the other day and a guy in an orange shirt asked me if I wanted decking, but don't worry, I got the first punch in, so just in case any listening what's going on.
I'm not sure how well that'll go over with the American listeners, but
that's Home Depot.
B&Q is Home Depot. Yeah,
Home Depot in America. If you go into Home Depot and they ask you want decking,
Mr. Paul Bassett in Putney, have you got anything you'd like to say as we wrap up? Oh, you're muted, Paul.
Muted, mate.
It reminds me of when Johnny Vegas used to go to the States but keep his jokes really local. So he'd tell jokes about his local town in front of an American audience, and no one, it basically would just dig in deep to the point where no one knew why he was there, who he was, and what the hell he was talking about. So I always think his conviction is what gets you through. It's the same with training. Anyway,
Absolutely.
that's it. Anyway, thanks for your time. That's fantastic. It's good to know that maybe I'm doing things all right.
Yeah. And it's I think it's different, and it must be challenging. A lot of the people that you work with, Paul, are obviously big corporate kind of chains and stuff, aren't they? And then that's a totally different proposition when you're trying to deal with behavior change and sort of member management at scale. At scale is that's where the processes and the systems have to be really tight, isn't it? Yeah.
So we did a project with Golds in America pre-pandemic, and I spent some time out there. I went to their clubs. I spent time with their senior management team, and then we did a 5 months of online work where we'd collaborate via, pretty much the same way we're talking today. They put that into place in October 2019. They were shut down in March 2020 because of the pandemic. And the changes we made had added $4.75 million to their bottom line in 5 months.
Wow.
But they were really uncomfortable with some of the changes they had to make because it wasn't the way they would have traditionally done it. And they were estimating it was going to be 8 or 9 million a year from there on. But you use the same strategies with companies that you use with individuals. You just have to, you've got more plates to spin because there are more people who it affects, and they don't want their bit of their job feeling like it's been diminished.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, it'd be great maybe in the future we'll speak to you again, because it almost feels like we're just at the tip of the iceberg really with what you do and what you know. So yeah, maybe down the line we'll
Happy to do it, James.
Try and jump on again. Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, so interesting. So thank you very much, Peter Lamp, Paul Bassett, and thank you especially Paul Bedford, Retention Guru, retentionguru.com for any stuff, and YouTube as well. Thank you to all of everyone listening at the moment. If you can, please like, share, subscribe, leave a review, and get in touch with us on the Facebook group. If you want to go into groups on Facebook, just search Health Oddity, click on join, and we'll let you in there. We have now, I think we're hitting a run of about the next 3 or 4 weeks where we have got guests lined up every week for the next few weeks. So we will see you again next week. Thank you again for your continued listening and support. And any questions, any comments, any suggestions, any guests you'd like us to get on, please do let us know, and we will continue to keep working on it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.